Well, pretty extraordinary scenes in Manhattan yesterday as a former US president is charged with 34 so-called felonies. This has never happened before, and with very good reason. Yet many former presidents have been in trouble. Richard Nixon over Watergate, criminal activity, people went to prison. Nixon was about to be served with a criminal notice, resigned as president, and then was pardoned. What about Bill Clinton? Well, he lied under oath about the Monica Lewinsky affair, and yet he too was pardoned. But Trump apparently should have declared the payments to Stormy Daniels, or his people should, as part of election expenditure. What happens if things go wrong there? Well, back in 2008, Barack Obama, well, his misreporting was so bad that the campaign received a fine of $375,000. And what about Hillary Clinton? When they hid the fact, they paid money to a former British agent called Chris Steele to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. He produced a file that was absolutely littered full of lies. None of it was proven. And yet, of course, her campaign received a fine. Yet what does Trump receive? 34 charges. Now, this is highly political. Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor in New York, said when he was running to be elected that he would get Trump. The Americans no longer have a judiciary that is in any way independent or, frankly, in which the country can trust. And that is very, very serious. The fact is, I don't believe campaign misreporting could have led to anything like this. And if they're saying about how the payments were accounted for, well, okay, maybe there is some inaccurate accounting, but that wouldn't be Donald Trump. After all, the last thing you'd ever call him is an accountant. That would have been dealt with by his accountants and lawyers. This is an attempt to put him out of the race for the 2024 presidential election. They are terrified of his patriotic agenda. They don't want a president that will close down borders. They certainly don't want a president that gets tough on China. Just think about it this week. We now learn that spy balloon, which it took Biden 6 days to shoot down, was actually doing figures of 8 over American military bases, with the pictures being transmitted back to Beijing. Now, they're happy with that. They don't want a president prepared to stand up to China. And of course, we're now being told there'll be other indictments from around the rest of the country. Quite how Trump as a human being puts up with all of this, I don't know. You know, we had the Mueller inquiry, we had the Russia hoax, the 2 impeachments. It's never, ever stopped. Their attempt to put him out of the game has never, ever stopped. And whilst he is an incredibly resilient human being, I know that, I thought that picture of him in the court yesterday showed a man under incredible strain. But he won't give in. He's going to go on fighting. He gave a speech at Mar-a-Lago last night, and actually, I thought it was a pretty disciplined speech. He's been warned not to say anything that could perhaps incite. But here's the worry. This isn't Donald Trump on trial. This is due process that's on trial. This is the American judicial system that's on trial. It's the American Constitution that's on trial. Actually, it's Western civilization's values that are on trial. Ever since King John was forced to sign the Magna Carta, you know, we've lived in a society where, whilst we may not agree with all of the decisions made, we do actually assume there is a degree of independence in our judiciary. If you cannot trust the rule of law, if you cannot trust mainstream media, if you cannot trust mainstream politicians, if faith breaks down in the whole system, well then, I'm afraid you're left with the alternative. And that alternative is very, very ugly. I wonder, part of me wonders, is that what the Democrats are actually trying to provoke? Because what they're doing is without justification, without any form of historical precedent. It is very, very dangerous. I genuinely believe everything we stand for in the Western world is on trial. And I think it is absolutely vital, whether you like this man or not, absolutely vital that he wins through all of this. The Democrats hate him, and they hate him with an irrationality, which means they're prepared to tear down all of those structures America has built over centuries. The stakes here simply could not be higher. And when I even listened to Radio 4's Today program, which often makes me very upset, even there, mainstream commentators and broadcasters and those that work for the BBC were making the point, this is all overtly political. I think we're looking at America, frankly, as a former world #1 power that is now turning in on itself. And through history, actually, empires and civilizations have collapsed, normally not because of the threat from without, but the threat from within. And if America falls, I tell you what, the whole of Western civilization falls. So I am with Trump all the way. And I urge you, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his politics or not, what matters here is respect for the rule of law. What matters here is that people can actually trust the systems under which they live. The alternative is too horrid to contemplate.